The streets were cold that November morning when Marcus first noticed the dog. It wasn't the kind of moment that changes your life, or at least that's what he thought. The scraggly golden retriever sat outside the convenience store, watching him with eyes that seemed to hold an entire conversation. Marcus had nothing to give. His pockets were empty, his stomach growled, and his worn-out shoes had holes that let in every drop of rain. Yet when he walked away, the dog stood up and followed. That was 3 days ago. Now, as Marcus trudged through the city streets with his few possessions in a tattered backpack, the dog remained his constant shadow, walking exactly 3 steps behind him, never straying, never leaving. Nobody knew why, but the answer would soon reveal something that would touch thousands of hearts. A bond nobody expected. Marcus had been living on the streets for 2 years. Once he had a home, a job, and dreams like everyone else. But life has a way of unraveling when you least expect it. A medical emergency wiped out his savings. Then came the job loss. Before he knew it, Marcus was one of the invisible people that crowds walked past without a second glance. The dog, Marcus had started calling him Buddy, was different from any stray he'd encountered. Most street animals were skittish, aggressive, or too beaten down by life to trust anyone. But Buddy was persistent. He didn't beg for food. He didn't whine or bark. He just followed, as if he had appointed himself Marcus's guardian. "Go home, boy," Marcus would say, waving his hand. "I got nothing for you." But Buddy never left. On the 4th day, something remarkable happened. Marcus was sitting on his usual corner, holding a cardboard sign that read, "Anything helps. God bless." Most people avoided eye contact. Some sneered. Others hurried past, clutching their coffee cups and smartphones like shields against the harsh reality of poverty. Then a woman stopped. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. But she wasn't looking at Marcus. She was looking at Buddy. "That's a beautiful dog," she said softly. "Is he yours?" Marcus shrugged. "He thinks so. Been following me for days. Won't leave no matter what I do." The woman knelt down, and Buddy approached her carefully, tail wagging slowly. She checked his collar. There was one, old and worn, with a tag so scratched it was barely readable. "There's a phone number here," she said, squinting at the metal tag. "It's really faded, but I think I can make it out." Marcus's heart sank. Part of him had grown attached to the loyal creature, but he knew a dog deserved better than the streets. The phone call that changed everything. Sarah, whose name was Sarah, insisted on calling the number right there. She put the phone on speaker so Marcus could hear. After several rings, an elderly voice answered. "Hello? Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm calling about a golden retriever. I found a dog with this number on his tag." There was a long pause, then a sound that made both Sarah and Marcus's eyes well up, the sound of someone crying. "You found Riley? Oh my God, you found my Riley?" The voice belonged to Margaret Peterson, an 82-year-old widow who lived alone on the outskirts of the city. Her story poured out in broken sentences, punctuated by tears of relief and joy. 6 weeks ago, Margaret had suffered a stroke. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, but in the chaos and confusion, her beloved dog Riley had escaped through the open front door. By the time Margaret's neighbor checked on the house, Riley was gone. Margaret had been heartbroken. From her hospital bed and later from the rehabilitation center, she had called every shelter, posted on every lost pet website, and prayed every night that Riley was safe. "But I don't understand," Margaret said through the phone. "Where did you find him? How did he survive all this time?" Sarah looked at Marcus. "He's been following a homeless man for the past few days. The man is right here with me." Another pause. "Can I speak to him, please?" Sarah handed the phone to Marcus. He'd barely spoken to anyone in weeks, and his voice cracked when he said, "Hello?" "Sir, I don't know your name, but thank you," Margaret whispered. "Thank you for keeping my Riley safe. He's all I have left in this world." Marcus looked down at Buddy, Riley, who sat patiently at his feet, tail wagging gently. "Ma'am, I didn't do nothing special. He just wouldn't leave me alone." Want to know what happened next? Keep reading, because this story is about to take a turn that nobody saw coming. The reunion. 2 days later, Sarah drove Marcus and Riley to the rehabilitation center where Margaret was completing her physical therapy.
Marcus had tried to refuse. He didn't belong in places like that, he said. I just say goodbye to Riley on the street. But Sarah wouldn't hear of it. Margaret wants to meet you. She needs to thank you properly. The rehabilitation center was clean and bright, with cheerful nurses and the smell of antiseptic mixed with flowers. Marcus felt out of place in his thoroughbred jacket and scuffed shoes, but the moment they entered Margaret's room, none of that mattered. Riley's transformation was instantaneous. The calm, quiet dog burst into motion, pulling at the leash, whining with pure joy. When Sarah unclipped him, he bounded across the room and leapt onto Margaret's bed, licking her face, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. Margaret sobbed, wrapping her frail arms around her dog. "My boy, my sweet boy, I thought I'd lost you forever." Nurses gathered at the doorway, wiping their own eyes. Even the usually stoic physical therapist had to turn away to compose herself. When Margaret finally looked up at Marcus, standing awkwardly near the door, she extended a trembling hand. "Come here, please." Marcus approached slowly. Margaret grasped his hand with surprising strength. "You saved him," she said. "You kept him safe when he had nobody else. How can I ever thank you?" Marcus shook his head. "Ma'am, I didn't do nothing. I couldn't even feed him proper. He ate whatever scraps I could find." "You gave him something more important than food," Margaret replied. "You gave him companionship. You didn't abandon him. That's everything." As they talked, the story became clearer. Riley likely traveled over 30 miles searching for Margaret. Dogs have an incredible sense of direction and an even more incredible sense of loyalty. But somewhere along the way, exhausted and lost, Riley had found Marcus. "He must have sensed something in you," Margaret said thoughtfully. "Dogs know. They know when someone has a good heart." The proposal. Before Marcus left that day, Margaret made him an offer that would change his life forever. "I'm going to be here for another 3 weeks," she explained, "and when I go home, I'm going to need help. The stroke affected my left side. I can't do stairs easily, I can't drive. I'll need someone to help with Riley, with shopping, with things around the house." She looked directly at Marcus. "I'd like that someone to be you. I'll pay you fairly, you'd have your own room, 3 meals a day. All I ask is that you help me take care of Riley and around the house." Marcus was stunned. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say. You don't even know me." "I know that my dog trusted you," Margaret replied, "and Riley is a better judge of character than most people I've met." This is the part where lives begin to change, but the transformation wasn't just for Marcus, it was for an entire community. Keep reading to discover how one dog's loyalty sparked a movement.
A new beginning. Marcus moved into Margaret's small but comfortable home 3 weeks later. The room she gave him was modest: a single bed, a dresser, a window that overlooked the garden. But to Marcus, it felt like a palace. He had a roof over his head. He had clean clothes. He had purpose. The first few weeks were an adjustment. Marcus had to relearn things he'd forgotten: regular meal times, hot showers, sleeping in a bed instead of under cardboard. Sometimes he'd wake up in a panic, thinking it was all a dream, that he'd find himself back on the cold pavement. But then Riley would nudge open his door, tail wagging, reminding him that this was real. Marcus took his responsibilities seriously. He walked Riley 3 times a day. He helped Margaret with physical therapy exercises. He learned to cook simple meals, something he hadn't done in years. He fixed the broken fence in the backyard and painted the peeling window frames. Margaret, in turn, treated him with dignity and respect. She never pitied him or made him feel less than. They became friends, spending evenings watching game shows or sitting in the garden while Riley chased squirrels. "You've given me my life back," Margaret told him one evening. "I was so lonely after my husband died. Then Riley disappeared, and I thought that was it. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But now, look, I have my dog back, and I have a friend." Marcus felt his eyes sting. "You gave me my life back too, ma'am. I don't know how to thank you." "You already have," she replied simply. The story goes viral.
Sarah, the woman who had first helped make the connection, couldn't stop thinking about Marcus and Margaret's story. With their permission, she wrote a post about it on social media. She included a photo of Riley sitting between Marcus and Margaret, all three of them smiling. "This is what love looks like," she wrote. "A homeless man, an elderly woman, and a dog who brought them together. Never underestimate the power of kindness." The post exploded. Within days, it had been shared hundreds of thousands of times. News outlets picked up the story. Local TV stations requested interviews. People from around the world sent messages of support and encouragement. But the most incredible response came from the local community. Inspired by Marcus's story, a group of residents started a nonprofit organization called Second Chances. The mission was simple: connect homeless individuals with elderly people who needed assistance with daily tasks. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. Homeless people got housing and stability, while seniors got help and companionship. Within 6 months, the program had placed 17 people in homes. Each story was unique, but they all shared the same theme: the transformative power of being seen, valued, and given an opportunity. Marcus became an unofficial ambassador for the program. He spoke at fundraisers and community events, sharing his story and encouraging others to open their hearts. "I was invisible," he told audiences. "People looked through me like I wasn't even there. But one dog saw me. One dog decided I was worth following, and that changed everything." You've come this far in the story, and maybe you're wondering, what can I do? How can I make a difference? The answer is simpler than you think. Keep reading for inspiration that could change someone's life, maybe even your own. The ripple effect. The impact of Riley's loyalty extended far beyond Marcus and Margaret. Their story became a touchstone for conversations about homelessness, aging, and the importance of human connection.
Schools used it as a teaching tool for empathy and kindness. Churches organized service projects. Local businesses started hiring homeless individuals, giving them a chance to rebuild their lives. One restaurant owner, inspired by Marcus's transformation, created a program offering free meals to anyone in need. No questions asked, no judgment. "If a dog can show that kind of unconditional love," he said, "surely we humans can do the same." A real estate developer who had been planning luxury condos on a downtown lot changed his plans. Instead, he built a transitional housing facility with job training services. He named it Riley's Place. The mayor even proclaimed a Second Chances Day, encouraging residents to volunteer, donate, or simply reach out to someone in need. Marcus was overwhelmed by the response. "I never expected any of this," he admitted during one interview. "I was just trying to survive day by day. I never imagined that following a dog, or rather, letting a dog follow me, would lead to all this." Riley's wisdom. But perhaps the most profound impact was on how people viewed those experiencing homelessness. Marcus's story humanized an issue that many found easy to ignore. "People forget that homeless individuals are people," Marcus explained during a community forum. "We have stories, we have dreams, we've experienced loss, trauma, bad luck. We're not invisible, even though society treats us that way." He paused, looking down at Riley, who lay contentedly at his feet. "This dog saw me when nobody else did. He didn't care that I smelled bad or had nothing to offer. He just chose me. And that act of being chosen, of being seen as worthy of loyalty, it reminded me that I was still human." The audience gave him a standing ovation. Margaret, sitting in the front row, wiped tears from her eyes. Later, she told a reporter, "Marcus saved Riley, but really, Riley saved us both. That's the beautiful mystery of love. You never know where it's going to come from or how it's going to change you." 1 year later.
A year after that fateful November morning, Marcus sat in Margaret's garden, Riley's head resting on his lap. He'd gained weight. The gaunt, haunted look had disappeared. He smiled easily now, and his eyes held light instead of despair. Margaret was doing well too. Her strength had returned, and while she still needed help with some tasks, she was fiercely independent. She'd started a support group for other seniors in the community, creating connections and fighting the isolation that had nearly consumed her. "What are you thinking about?" asked Margaret, joining him with 2 glasses of lemonade. "Oh, just everything," Marcus replied. "How one moment can change your entire life. How a dog following me for no apparent reason led to all this." "Oh, but there was a reason," Margaret corrected gently. "Riley knew you needed each other. Animals have wisdom we've forgotten, the wisdom of seeing hearts instead of circumstances." Marcus nodded, stroking Riley's golden fur. "I used to think my life was over, that I'd die alone on those streets, forgotten by everyone. But Riley didn't forget me. He saw me. And now the whole world sees you," Margaret added with a smile. "The legacy of loyalty." Today, the Second Chances program continues to grow. It's expanded to 3 neighboring cities and is in talks to develop a national model. Hundreds of lives have been transformed, both those receiving housing and those receiving care. But beyond the numbers and the programs, there's something more fundamental at work. Marcus and Margaret's story remind us of truths we too often forget. Everyone deserves to be seen. Behind every homeless person is a story, a history, a human being who deserves dignity and respect. Small acts of kindness create massive ripples. Sarah could have walked past Marcus and Riley. Instead, she stopped. She cared. She made a phone call. That single act of compassion set in motion changes that affected thousands of lives. Love recognizes no boundaries. A dog's loyalty transcended social barriers, economic circumstances, and societal prejudices. Riley didn't see a homeless man. He saw a person worth following. We all need purpose. When Marcus had nothing, caring for Riley gave him a reason to keep going. When Margaret was isolated, having Marcus in her home gave her purpose beyond her own recovery. Second chances are real. With the right support and opportunity, people can transform their lives. Marcus proved that given a chance, the homeless aren't hopeless. They're simply humans facing incredibly difficult circumstances. Your turn to make a difference. You've read this story, and maybe it's touched something in your heart. Maybe you're wondering what you can do. The answer is more than you think. Start by seeing, really seeing the people around you. Make eye contact with that person holding a sign. Acknowledge their humanity with a nod or a kind word. Support local organizations that serve the homeless or the elderly. Volunteer your time. Donate resources. Advocate for policies that create real solutions. Consider becoming a second chance yourself. Do you know an elderly neighbor who needs help? Could you spare a few hours a week to make a difference in someone's life? Share stories like this one. When we share stories of hope and transformation, we challenge the narratives of despair and helplessness. We remind each other what's possible. Be like Riley. Approach the world with loyalty, without prejudice, seeing hearts instead of circumstances. Show up for people. Stay present. Don't abandon those who need you most. The truth is, we're all one unexpected crisis away from needing help. We're all one stroke of bad luck from experiencing what Marcus experienced, but we're all one act of kindness away from being someone's hero. Marcus often says, "Riley followed me for miles, and everyone wondered why." But the real question isn't why he followed me. It's why don't we all follow the example of loyalty and unconditional love that dogs naturally live by? The final word. On a bright afternoon, almost 18 months after that November morning, Marcus stood before a crowd at the opening ceremony of Riley's place, the new transitional housing facility. Riley stood beside him, older now,
his muzzle graying, but his eyes still bright with that same loyal love. People ask me all the time how I turned my life around. They want to know the secret, but there's no secret. It's actually very simple. He paused, looking down at Riley, who gazed back at him with absolute devotion. Someone chose to see me. A dog first, then a woman, then a community. They chose to believe I was worth something. That's what we all need, to be seen, to be valued, to be given a chance to prove we matter. So I'm asking you, I'm challenging you to go out and see someone. Choose someone who feels invisible and show them they're not. You don't need a big program or lots of money. Just see them. Everything else flows from there. The question now is, who will you see today? Whose life will you change? The story of Riley, Marcus, and Margaret isn't just their story. It's a story about all of us, about the capacity we all have for love, for loyalty, for seeing past surface appearances to the human heart beneath. A dog followed a homeless man for miles. Nobody could imagine why, but now we know. He was following the path to redemption, not just for himself, but for everyone whose life he touched. Your path to making a difference starts with a single choice: to see, to care, to act. What will you choose? Riley followed Marcus because love recognizes no boundaries. Now it's our turn to follow Riley's example, to show up for others with loyalty, without judgment, and with the kind of unconditional love that changes everything. The streets may be cold, but our hearts don't have to be. One act of kindness, one moment of seeing, one person choosing to care. That's all it takes to start a revolution of love. The question isn't why Riley followed Marcus. The question is, who will you follow with your kindness today?